everybody. I'm Zac.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching Disruptive Investing. And we've got a really interesting show today, and I don't fully understand it yet, so you're going to have to walk through it with me here. Jesse knows more of it than I do, I think. We're talking right now with Daniel Jantzi. He's the CEO of Henson Shaving. And you might be like, why are you talking to a shaving company? Well, it turns out they do more than shaving. I don't know how much they're going to be able to tell us today, but it's really interesting. And then how they got onto this shaving is really interesting. And then you're going to tell us about you actually shaved with their product today.
Yeah. So let's first get into this. So, we're thinking shaving, what's kind of adjacent to that? Oh, maybe, I don't know, but it's not satellites. That's not what I'm thinking when I'm thinking like, oh yeah, shaving razor blades and satellites and Mars rovers.
Right. So, so thanks for joining us today, Daniel. I guess, that's our first question is, how did we get to, well, hold up that shaver there, Jesse. So we're going to get to this.
Yes.
The shaver. We started someplace else. Where are we starting with?
My brothers own an aerospace machine shop. So for like the last 20 years, we've been, I grew up there, but they do all the work. They've been making just some really fancy components. They got into really high tolerance components. And so a few years ago, they got their AS9100 certification, and we started making a lot of parts that went up in space. So it's a pretty interesting story. So in March of last year, when COVID hit, or 2020, when COVID hit, a really prominent low Earth orbit satellite company went bankrupt. And when they went bankrupt, we had a huge contract with them, and it just stopped. And so it was a really sad time. It was like, what are we going to do? And I was like, don't worry, we're going to conquer. We're going to find new customers. And Ryan, my brother, was like, it takes just so long to build up enough credibility with someone to get that kind of a contract. And so we said, hey, the window's open. Like, the guy hasn't had a vacancy on his machine in 20 years. Let's make the razor. We've been talking about it. And the general thought was that the shaving industry is designed to shave billions of people. And when you make that many of something, it's not economically feasible to make it with such tight tolerances. And so we thought if we applied really tight tolerances to a razor, you would hand it to 10 people and 9 of them would say that's better. Like that was the thought, is that if we applied those tolerances, it might achieve like a objectively better result. So that was the goal.
Okay, so you kind of lost me there, because I get that satellites have tight tolerances, but I mean, I thought something like this, like that you can get at any drugstore, is like, I don't know, already been figured out. Like, I don't see how you can make it better than, I mean, doesn't Gillette just make the best razor or something? Like,
I thought it was the best the man can get.
Right, it's the best the man can get. So what, you figured out how to get better? Like what?
It's the best that 3 billion people can get. Let's put it that way. So the idea is if we, Elon is really clear on this. He says that design is one thing, manufacturing something is another. So manufacturing something with tight tolerances at scale is not economically feasible. So, there's no shade to be thrown on a company successfully giving the people 4 billion people a product. What we wanted to do was give someone who elected into it a chance to have something where the blade was just simply supported better, and it then shaved better. And the problem is it's really difficult to say we've got a great product. Like, everybody says that. So we made it, and we didn't know really if it was going to be a business. It was really just my brothers and I wanting to work together. We've lived together. We grew up together, and we live on a compound and live beside each other. We've done the whole thing, and business was the one part we haven't done. And so we didn't know how good the product would be. And then I realized after my brother gave it to me and I used it, I went back to them and I'm like, guys, like we've been looking to, like, it was really good. So, and then we started offering it for sale, and it seemed that feeling was mutual with our customers. So it kind of organically turned into something that we thought would be a fun project. And then all of a sudden it's like, it was really good. So we were like, it started selling.
I was really skeptical when Daniel reached out to us, because he said the same thing, which is that we came up with this really great shaver. You guys have to try it. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't see, it seems so simple. But you sent us a couple. I don't shave, as you can tell. And the reason I don't shave, I just want to actually, is because it sucks so bad. Like, I have not shaved since he was a baby. And basically it's because I just remember it's gonna hurt. And then the other problem being that you would buy a fairly expensive, I haven't done this in 30 years, but you buy a fairly expensive cartridge, and then you feel like you have to use it beyond probably its sharpness point because you're like, I spent whatever on this cartridge. So then another day with that cartridge. So yeah, I just stopped shaving. That was my solution. Now you shave.
Yeah.
And so Daniel was nice enough to send us one of these. You just shaved actually minutes ago.
I was late for the interview. I'm sorry, Daniel. I was just putting on my post-shave balm. I was getting all fancied up, but yeah, literally just out of the shower. And normally, I just want to stress, for years that we've been doing Tesla Time News, I would strategically time when I would shave. I would make sure that it was at least about a day, if not a day and a half before we recorded Tesla Time News, that I would shave, because I was so worried that my face would break out or that it would just be inflamed. And I didn't want to be seen on camera having just shaved. Now, I just moments ago shaved, and I've never done that before, just because, yeah, my face would not like it.
Okay, but here's my question for Daniel. They've had decades and decades to perfect this. Centuries to perfect
Millennia.
this. And I thought, there's 5 blades on this Gillette shaver, so each one gets closer and closer to your face. Right. How can your razor only has 1 blade? So how did you, please explain to me why they have 5 blades. How can you do better?
It's a really interesting concept. The physics of cutting something, if you watch any of the commercials that we've all seen since we were young, what actually happens is the top blade, or those blades, are all interlaced at different heights. If you look under the microscope, they're all interlaced at different heights. And so what happens is the first one actually pulls on the hair, and it's actually kind of interesting. They are open about the fact that they cut the hair 5 times, and I don't know why anybody would say let's cut something 5 times rather than once. But the idea is that in the process of cutting the hair, the end result of a smooth shave is what they're after. So they, in the name of doing that, the top blade actually pulls on the hair enough to reveal more of the root, and then cuts it. And then what happens is, after that friction is released, it actually recedes back under the skin.
But wait a minute. So stop there for a second. So that sounds awesome. It's under the skin. It's the best shape. They found a way to go negative hair. Why is that bad?
As soon as you're done shaving, then you'll have a very smooth shave. The problem is after the hair starts to regrow, it tries to go up, and then sometimes it doesn't actually go properly through the skin again. And what happens is it rounds, and then you get those ingrown hairs all around your body. And, you think this is a problem for dudes on their face. This is a huge problem for females on their body. And so exactly what you were saying, Jesse, it becomes this art of timing the pitch sort of thing, and hitting a baseball is really hard. So it's about timing and prep. So this is a very common problem. So,
okay. So I get that they're probably doing it wrong. How are you doing it right?
The problem is not, for the record, the single blade we didn't invent. We don't deserve any, we brought 1 blade to the world. There is many razors there that have 1 blade. The problem is that I'll just pull up a standard safety razor here. If I show you, do you see how that edge is beveled? That's a rounded edge. So in order for me to get cutting action, so this doesn't cut, this doesn't cut. There it starts to cut. There it really cuts. There it stops cutting. So it becomes a gradient. It's really non-binary. And so what our concept is if we came out with a flat head, and if it was a flat head, then actually the geometry push here, I'll exaggerate. If I push up here and push down here, I can kind of prep the middle. So now I take this, I put it to my face and pull, and no matter what angle I almost do it on, as long as I push in enough, not too hard, but as long as I push in enough, it actually kind of sets the angle itself. And it's that self-setting of the angle that makes it so that it's a lot more intuitive, that I can just follow my face and it's easy. And then there's my hair. So because it has that edge, and that combined with, I don't know if you'll be able to see it or not, but the blade on this only sticks out 1.3 thousandths of an inch. So it is a very small blade exposure. So in contrast, the blade exposure, how much this guy sticks out, is around 70 thou. So if you even just listen, auditory, if I turn this up, versus, it's it's literally like, it's like if you were to try to hold a hot dog and cut it at the top, it would, the force to cut wouldn't cut because it would actually amortize or divide over the bending force of the hot dog. So if we have a blade, that's the first thing that touches your skin, and that's the thing that protrudes out the most, it actually literally glides along the skin. And with the cutting angle, we chose, instead of cut like down and dragging across, you guys know this, if you have a shovel and you flip the shovel over and drag along the driveway, your Southern people won't get this, so just tune out for a second. As you drag along the snow, there'll be periods where it just kind of goes above the snow. So what we did was we changed the angle on this because we're Canadian. We know how to shovel the driveway. So we actually made it so that it's on the right angle. So it scoops and cuts along your skin instead of grinds into it.
And I mean, I had switched to a safety razor a couple years ago, and I immediately noticed that it was better on my skin than a regular cartridge razor, but it wasn't perfect. And this is, to me, kind of in between a cartridge razor, at least in the sense that it's kind of stupid proof. Like with the safety razor, you're like, okay, I will now take the razor and I will gingerly adjust the angle and follow it along my face. With this, it feels a lot more reminiscent of like a cartridge where you don't have to think as much.
Can I just interject here for the stupid people like me, because I've never used a safety razor. It sounds great, the word safety, but then when I saw you doing it, I was like, oh, that looks really dangerous.
Right.
It's a double-edged razor blade.
Right.
Like, I don't know if anyone should touch that.
Right.
It's like a knife with a guard. It's like it's ironic that it's called a safety razor, because the reason that cartridge razors, in my opinion, never mind bias motive, because I don't want to get into why companies want to make money and how they made a product that just so happens to make a lot of reoccurring revenue from a consumer. But strictly talking about the product, these can cut very well. They do it. Just a standard safety razor can do very well. There's nothing wrong with them at all. The reason that they don't have the market sort of dominance that you would expect with a product that's so obviously competent is just like what Elon says, all user input is error. So as soon as you need to learn something, as soon as you need to master it. Now, for the record, there are many people who enjoy mastering that. Crocodile Dundee, straight up knife. Other people, show me a beveled edge that has a guard on it, but I want to learn how to use it. And it's the pursuit of using it that they enjoy. Whereas ours has the result of a skilled razor. A skilled person with this would get this. We are, never mind the science, but we're getting a lot of a closer shave with this just due to that prep work that I told you above and below the skin. But this is going to give someone with little to no education, little to no training, a similar result than someone who has a lot of training on a standard safety razor. So you exactly nailed it. It's the in-between guy. It's the results of a safety razor with training, but with the simplicity of a cartridge razor.
Now, if you're watching right now, viewer, and you're like, okay, but why on this channel? I'm on the Disruptive Investing channel. I want you to stick around because there's two important pieces to this that I really feel are important. One is there's a sustainability aspect to this that you may not be getting yet. And there's a disruption aspect to this and how this company actually disrupted and how they approached it differently than other companies. And I think if we understand those two things, you're going to be happy you watched. So the first part of this is sustainability. So to go back to a safety razor versus a cartridge has, 1 to 5 pieces of metal stuck into a piece of plastic. It's designed to only last a short amount of time until that, razor gets dull. Then you're supposed to throw it away.
And it's not just the plastics engineer over here has to chime in. Usually it is way more than one type of plastic, which A, makes recycling difficult. And then second of all, you just stuck a bunch of razor sharp blades in there, which makes it, again, even harder to recycle. Whereas with a safety razor, yes, you still have the razor sharp blades, but it's just metal. So, ooh, scary. Once you kind of get used to understanding, I've done a lot of duct work in my life, and you just don't touch the edge of it. Same thing with the double-edged razor, and yeah, there's just nothing to.
And there's so little to it.
Right.
It's such a small piece of metal. And then, so we did a little math. Tell me, Daniel, if we're wrong about this, but Jesse and I did a little math based on him, and we figured that a box of 100 razor blades would last you 8 years.
We say 3 because I wouldn't want to be too conservative, but yeah, this here is the box that we ship. Here. Is that, yeah. So we ship this, this is $10. And in that is 20 of these. And in this is 5 of these. So it comes with 100 of these for $10. And I know exactly what you're talking about when you say that you had the cartridge razor and you would just ride it out. And you'd be like, I'm going to eat the pain because $3, no friggin' way. And then you leave out, you're all like marked up and sore because you want to like ride out that value, right? You don't want to like throw a blade in the garbage that could have gotten an extra couple of shaves. So what happens here is, and I'm so cheap, I actually still use these blades too long, which is terrible. So even at 10 cents a piece, I often have to remind myself, I'm like, no, put a new blade in. You're worth 10 cents. God. So the idea here is that this guy should last you, we say 3 years, but yeah, 8 years. And it's hilarious. So the cost to shave with something like this was $25, right? And then that's just consumable. That'll go in the garbage and then it's gone. So what happened was it's not only the waste reduction, it's the waste reduction simultaneous with the cost reduction. If you're on a budget, there are a lot of people that are on a budget. And if you were to go up to them and say, hey, how much is your club cost? And they're like, well, $13 a month. And you're like, okay, well, you know, what happens if you were on a budget and you could put $13 a month back into your account? Or what if you're not on a budget and you put $13 into UNICEF? Or what if you put $13 into like helping a friend out? Or what if you put what if we all did that? There would be like this huge change. Early days, we were talking about like partnering with some, you know, we were talking about partnering with like UNICEF or somebody and trying to say like, what happened if we got like 1 million people? They give $13 a month to like share, like that's $13 million a month, man. Like that's real change we're talking about. Like, so we don't quite know that. And we didn't want to like make the sale complicated. What's with the charity? But there's something there about like giving somebody something, a significant reduction in cost that is significantly better for the environment. Like, why is FedEx driving all the way down my road, walking up my door, knocking on my door and leaving? And then there's our razors. It looks good when you're on your couch and you're like, hey, that's delivered to my door. That's awesome. And then you think about it and then there's this pile of crap left over and there's hundreds of millions of people doing this. So the problem was, the solution was clear. The difficulty is the execution. Everybody would know that this would be better for the environment and cheaper. The difficulty is asking somebody to make these or this at scale is really hard. It's a difficult problem and not a problem one.
So how did you approach this problem? So, because basically I do want to point out to viewers, we're showing your website right now. This isn't cheap. Like this is a lot more expensive than if you just bought some Gillette system or something like that. But this could last, you could pass this down to your grandkids. Like this is going to last forever. Right. There's nothing here that's going to rust. You even sell a titanium version for those of you who just want a titanium version. But yeah, this is, and so, but what's so difficult about making this?
There's a lot of parts in here. I don't know how deep you want me to go on the geometry and the science, but the fundamental concept that's at play here is that if we can have predictability in our manufacturing, then we can have a design that plays on the edge. It plays on the edge, no pun intended, gross. We can have a design that like actually we could have the blade in a very consistent spot. So just so you know, this is a 3-piece. So we unscrew this handle. So the first thing is, that blade is held in there with those posts. I don't know if you can see that. And so what we did was it's a matter of where those posts and their dimensions. And those posts are manufactured or made with all critical dimensions or all critical aspects of the blade are held to somewhere in the neighborhood of 1/5 of a thou to 2/5 of a thou.
Right, so wait, so what? Yeah, what does that mean in non machinist term?
Yeah.
1/17 of the thickness of a human hair.
What?
Okay.
So what happens is when you start talking about tolerances at that level, you start introducing new problems. You know, now all of a sudden it's like, hey, what temperature was this manufactured at? And hey, in order to be profitable, let's just run the machine a little harder. Well, if I run the machine a little harder, now the tool starts flexing or the part starts moving. So now you can't just run it harder because now running it harder is going to create inconsistencies. So just to give you a concept, this blade, the blade in there only protrudes out from a flat surface 0.3 thousandths of an inch. So about 1/3 or 1/6 of the thickness of a human hair, depending if you have thick or thin hair. It's out of spec at minus half a thou plus. So if you go up or down half a thou, it's at a spec. Because think about it. If the blade's only sticking out 1.3 thou, moving plus minus half a thou, that's a lot. That's like that's too much. These are manufactured with plus minus a fifth of a thou, which means it protrudes out only up to around 1.5, 1.7. I was talking to my brother before I got on here and I was like, hey, what's bad? And he's like, 1.8 would be way too much, which means if we're off by half a thou, we're scrap. Making thousands of something with those tolerances, now all of a sudden, your machinist had a bad weekend, someone wasn't paying attention, someone decided not to follow process because you decided to grow your company. And now you've got these new people and they didn't want to follow the checklist. So now all of a sudden you got to make them follow the, which means you need AS 9100, which is a big, thick book that describes exactly who can touch what and what way and with what gloves. And it hurts my brain to even talk about. The idea is that you need those attention to details in order to manufacture this consistently. The downside is that most people who are okay with those policies and procedures don't want to make a razor. They want to make like something else. And so the really unique scenario here is we've brought them in. They were the guys that designed it. They were the people who made it. So now you've got these like aerospace machinists who want to like work on, more Mars rover stuff. They love this. Now they're talking about how to make it in the best. Well, how can we get down from, 1.6 to 1.4? How do we do better temperature control? How do we bring in new cooling stacks? So the coolant going into the machine that you spray onto the tool, how do we make sure that temperature is predictable? Plus minus half a degree. Well, to control half a degree at 600 gallons per minute, you're talking about some serious So everything gets more complicated. And then the spreadsheet or the MBA or the business guy comes in and says, no friggin' way, no reoccurring revenue. You only sell a product once, not happening. So it often is a concept that many people think of, but in order to do it at scale, it doesn't show well in the spreadsheets. So people don't do it.
So wait, I just want to get this point across, is that these blades that you can buy on your website, you're not making the blades.
No, we don't need to. The blades are great. The blades aren't the problem. They never are the problem. They never were the problem.
So on all the, all the Gillette ads, I'm just going to pick on Gillette. Because to go back, when I was 16, they sent me a razor in the mail addressed to me. I'd never bought anything in my whole life. I didn't have a credit card. I don't know how they knew my name or that I had just turned 16, but they said, happy birthday, Jesse. Here's a razor in a box for you. And I went, oh my God, I went online and it was, that's a $60 razor. Wow. Why did they do that? It's because they knew that I would start buying their stuff from age 16 when I probably didn't need to shave for another year and a half. They sent me a razor and I started shaving. And honestly, they sent me with 3 blades, 3 cartridges, and I kept using them for about a year and a half before it was like, oh, I guess I need new ones, till they started to rust. And I went, oh, I was supposed to change them. And meanwhile, my acne at the time was horrific, all because I was, so to go back, the blades, so when you see on the commercials and they show the blades and then they show them peeling off, some infinitesimal amount of blades, it's not the blade that is the problem with your razor, aside from the fact that you need a new one. The problem is, just that you needed a new razor. Like they can make razors.
The problem is in how you hold it. And engineering I'm not an engineer, thankfully. The engineering is best done, or the physics is best done, demonstrated in extremes, in my opinion. So if I were to hold the blade like this with my hand and put it near my skin, it would become instantly evident that the way that I'm holding it is susceptible to hurting me. And if I were to hold it closer, then it becomes less dangerous. The flex of the blade becomes less of a danger and more of an action that's working the way I want it to. So we really quickly realized that how far out the blade exposure is directly proportional to how good of a grip you have. A really good example is, think of a diving board. The further you walk away from the fulcrum, the bouncier the diving board gets. Same diving board, but tensile strength over distance, right? How far you walk away from the fulcrum is directly proportional to how bouncy it gets. Imagine a diving board that at this scale would probably be about 1/8 of an inch. That's not so much a diving board as it would be like, a ledge. And so that it's the same material. The diving board wasn't the problem. It was the amount of diving board that you had. And so what we found was that we made this top head, this top cap, so we made it angled down so that it grips, I think it's like almost directly on the edge. You almost can't even see it. So there's no room for the blade to cut. As I said, imagine a hot dog in your hand, cutting it at the top. Same knife, cut the hot dog at the bottom. You won't even feel it. It just cuts it effortlessly. So the position of which you cut, or the holder and the way you hold the knife, go to any, I've done 2 cooking classes, so be careful here, but go to any cooking class and they tell you the way you hold the knife is everything. The knife isn't the problem. Let the knife do the work. Razors are the exact same. If you were to get a microscope and go look at a typical 5 cartridge razor, grab a pencil and poke at it, the blade is almost floating there because it doesn't make an economical sense to support it more. Every time you put a support in there, it gets more expensive. And unfortunately, we have a race to the bottom of costs, not to the race to the top of quality.
Now, before we get to the disruptive part, I want to just talk about your brothers have a company that works for some big name aerospace companies. They're making things. You just mentioned the Mars rover. Can you just talk about, I know you probably can't tell me the name of the company because they're probably under all sorts of NDAs and stuff like that, but can you tell me some of the projects you guys have worked on?
Yeah. So, ever since I was a kid, coming in and watching my brothers do what they do, it's been a show. And everybody who we're connected to has just watched the show. We're sitting here with popcorn watching their company do what it does. They make a lot of stuff for some low Earth orbit satellite clusters that are floating around us right now. Can't tell you who. I'm under being careful here. They made some really neat parts for the Mars rover, and they made some really neat parts for the International Space Station that are up there now. So their kind of bread and butter, or their like point of differentiation, has been competent-based scale, meaning high tolerance, high throughput. And they're kind of like down here picking up all the pieces. If you go talk to any people out there who are making razors right now, they'll tell you the number one problem in their business is consistency in manufacturing. It's not the marketing. It's the ability to manufacture something. Elon said the other day at an interview on Starbase, he's like, a design everyone thinks design's the hard part. That's just wrong. Manufacturing is the hard part. Although I think my brothers did a great job designing this, I think the real secret sauce is for years and years, they've been the company that, the monsters of the world come to when they need something made, a whole bunch of them that are ludicrously high tolerances. They've gotten jobs from other people who couldn't do work around, we're talking Thailand, we're talking North America, we're talking Canada. When there's parts that need to be made that other people struggle to be made, that's where these guys come in. And, that was when they had an opening on their machines. It was like it was a no-brainer. Now it was like we always wanted to work together, but we couldn't financially ever justify it. And then all of a sudden the opening was there. So we took it.
Now, there's another piece to this razor, which is deceptively simple, that I want you to talk about, which is something would happen normally when you screw this together that would normally happen, and it doesn't happen on your razor, and I don't fully understand why, but maybe you can help explain it.
So this is an early prototype. I don't know if I should be showing this. See? The pink, how it was anodizing was hard to learn. Anyway, there was a plastic bushing in there. And what happened was, from a molecular level, if you try to tighten aluminum on aluminum, and when you're torquing that, what it's happening is it's pushing the handle into the top plate. And as you torque that and turning around, that brings a lot of torque. It puts a lot of PSI there. And what happens is, on a molecular level, it actually, like, as you turn, they get tight and it binds together. And then when you try to loosen it, it's got that, it wants to hold and then release. So what we ended up doing was we put a tungsten bushing in there. That bushing that's in there is tungsten. And what that does is tungsten is a really hard material. It's hard. It's nasty to machine. It's nasty to manufacture, but it's so hard that what happens is the pressure on the aluminum into it doesn't end up grinding on it. So what I can do is I can tighten that real hard, and that'll come off nice and easy. And it doesn't have that grind feel to it. So that tungsten bushing is what kind of makes it, without even thinking, it just makes it like really smooth.
All right. So this leads me kind of to the disruption part, which is what we love about Elon is he goes back to first principles all the time. And he says, can you solve this problem? Not could it be profitable? Not could I do it for a cent less? But can you solve this problem?
Or will it be easy?
Right, exactly.
Anything like that.
Will I sell 1 million of them? Right. I don't know. But could I solve it? And that's kind of where you guys approach this from, was like, shaving sucks. But we could solve it. Now, is it expensive? Yes. And like, will it be hard? Yes. But we can solve it. And in fact, that leads me to the name of your company. Please tell me, who is Henson?
William Henson invented the T-razor. He was the one who took it from a flat, single blade, truck crocodile Dundee, hope I don't cut my aortic artery, to like, hey, let's like make the safety razor. Let's make the T. And introduce shaving. See, shaving when it started was like basically an effort to differentiate ourselves from apes. We're like, hey, we're really hairy, but look what I can do with this blade. And now I look like this. It's literally just like we have evolved. And so what happened was, just like we saw you guys talked about on the show the other day, we start with technology where it serves the rich. And then as it becomes more common, it serves the everyday person. You talked about this with autonomous cars and people how used to having a chauffeur. So the idea is that when he made that invention, he made something that took that tactile skill and he made it so that you got the result of a beautiful shave, but with a significant reduction in skill. So we were talking about, what we should name the company. And then my business partner was like, bro, like, can you think of a better example than William S. Henson literally making the same concept, but much easier through an advancement in technology? And actually I wouldn't say our benchmark, but the idea is that if he were to see what we made today, we would hope that he would be like, that's it. I don't think that the design would be really what he would freak out about. I think he would be impressed with the execution of the manufacturing. And, Elon was saying the other day, you talked about MBA and you talked about engineers. We don't have any aerospace engineers on our team. There are 0 aerospace engineers on our team. He said the other day when he was being on Starbase, he's like, be careful asking a smart person questions. Like you might get a smart answer and then you might not be able to like double check if it's right or not. So this razor was designed by guys who don't have a degree, but they've been holding and cutting materials for years. If I told you that you could hold something like this and you need to machine it around like that, you would understand material real quick after you scrap the 3rd or 4th or 5th or 6th one. So when you want to design something, you go up to the guy who's making it and be like, hey, instead of cutting aluminum off of a part, I need you to cut hair off my face. That's where the flutes came in. Trying to get on the right angle there. That radius in there is literally the same as the flute on a drill bit. So after shave, it curves around the inside there and ejects out the bottom, because for 20 years, guys have been putting a drill bit into aluminum and displacing material, and it needs to go up the flute and out. So exactly the same way, you've got Elon Musk, who's not a rocket engineer, giving and consulting people who are making rockets because he's thinking about it from a fresh page perspective. We went up to the machinists and said like, hey, can you make something that cuts hair really well? And my brother and his team came up with this. It's not a revolution in design. It's a really good design that's really well made.
But I can hear the MBAs tapping on their iPads right now. You can't do this. And I'm so sorry to have to break it to you here on this disruptive investing episode, but you can't do this high tolerance stuff, this low throughput stuff. You need to build, you need to scale, we need to be outsourcing this to China. We can't be making such high tolerance stuff. We need to just be making a decent, healthy profit. And also, what's up with you not manufacturing and selling your own blades?
Yeah, the one thing
These
that we
so
sell
cheap
over and over again. You're doing business wrong here, dude.
I'm just, I'm worried about this company from the perspective of, you sell me one razor, I'm never going to buy another one.
Maybe I can put your concerns at ease here.
Okay.
Companies die when they run out of money. That's the game over. Dun, 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 dun. The company is over when they run out of cash. And so what you have to look at is your cost of manufacturing, your cost of service, and your cost to acquire a new customer. What doesn't show up on an MBA's forecast is really product competence. product competence has been left aside for a very long time. Factoring for the product to actually do what you say it's going to do is drastically decreasing our cost to acquire customers. So we would start putting an ad on Facebook. And when we first started, we were like, holy crap, people are buying it. Like, what the heck? And, I would tell other people in the e-commerce space, what our cost to acquire a customer was. And it was really low. And they're like, oh, you're going to need the lotions, the upsells, you're going to need the blades, because no way you'll be able to compete with the big guys on simply, why would they show my ad when they can show another ad with a higher budget of per impression, because they're going to have more money in it. Well, same as density equals mass over volume, or same as any other equation, conversion rate times click-through rate times profit per customer equals revenue. So because we've got a really high conversion rate on the website, and the website is nothing special, it's not anything great. We did it ourselves. We tried to get people to help us with it. It was not a work. We had Matt over here did it all himself. So the idea is that the product actually freaking works. So when 25 people go to our site, more people buy it, which means our cost to acquire customers is significantly lower. There, we take that, and now we're moving over to what we're calling competence-based advertising. We want to move entirely into like people saying, holy crap, this works. We want to find a way. We're sitting here thinking, how do you make a slogan? Like, what, put your marketing, you guys want to be the special operations people, put your marketing hat on for Tesla. How would you market his company? Oh, we make a truck out of stainless steel instead of mild steel, so it doesn't run. Like, how do you say that in 3 words? Making a company so that if we get hit by an asteroid, your lineage doesn't die. Like, you run out of words at some point, and you just have to act competently. We don't have any words left, so we just have to show the product working. That's all there is. So our marketing department now is really just like videos of our razor working. That's our slogan. It works. Like, we don't even know what our slogan is. It's just a product that works. So we think that the existence of our company is much more likely to continue to exist and even grow because the freaking product works. And if the product works, then you can just shut up and let it do its thing. I say that after talking for 9 minutes.
But I mean, this is so much like Tesla in the sense that you can't describe it on a website. You can't, you can make all the videos about a Model 3 as you want. Put someone in the car for 90 seconds and they're already well on their way to, okay, where do I get one of these? And so it's butts and seats. And so I think with this shaver, and I mean, Jesse can't stop talking about it, is, I don't know, it's the equivalent. We have to come up with the equivalent motto for
butts
it, which
and
is
seats, blades on faces.
Blades on faces. Yeah. Because when you hear from somebody directly, that's a whole different thing than like, an advertisement. That's Jesse saying like, oh my God, I hated shaving. Now I love shaving.
Well, and I did care about sustainability. I mean, I probably would have been perfectly happy continuing to use a cartridge razor. As soon as I heard that, like, what are you going to do with the cartridge razor when you're done with it? You throw it in the trash and then what? Like, it's a completely different story than having a tiny little piece of metal.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at your life, right? If you were to have found out about this when you were 16, then you're probably talking about this much blades in your entire life.
Yep.
And this.
Right, because I also don't shave that often. Like, there are a lot of people who shave every day, and it's not, the length of hair that you're shaving is how often you do it. I shave maybe once or twice a week.
And let's just talk about the recycling of the steel. So, like, if that was the amount of steel you used in your life, that's like, steel is recyclable. Like, it's highly recyclable.
And I mean, honestly, before the cartridge razor really came into its own, there was only really safety razors, and in houses, I learned this once, they would have the medicine cabinet, and in the back of the medicine cabinet would be this little slot, and people would be like, oh, I don't know what that's for. That was for, you would take the blade from your safety razor and you'd stick it in the slot, and it would fall into the wall of your house.
I'm a contractor, and I can tell you, I have found that the hard way.
Now, you might think, well, that's a ridiculous solution, and it is. It kind of speaks to, but it's so small. There's so little of it that it's like you'd expect, it would become full, and one day you'd try and stick it through the slot and you would be able to get through it. And it just, people's whole lives, they'd live in the house and stick the little razors through the slot and it would still be there. Yeah. So, I mean, that to me shows kind of the sustainability aspect of it.
It's a few nails worth of steel. Let's be honest. Like, that's it.
Right. And I mean, you held up a box that was worth 3 years of shaving. And you're not even being, you're not even like like for me, I think that could last me a very long time.
But let me ask you something from a marketing point of view. So like I'm so used to a shaver costing, some ridiculously small amount of money that when I think a lot of people see this and it's, $70, they're like, $70.
Right.
I've never paid that in my life for shaving. It's kind of like an electric car, right? You see that it might be slightly more expensive than an ICE car at the moment. But you don't do any of the other math, the maintenance, the fuel, the lifespan. Right. And so if you don't do that math, it might be a tiny bit more expensive. But as soon as you do the other math. So my question is, are your customers doing that math?
Yeah, not only are our customers doing that math, they're helping other people do the math. There's been, we kind of have this like sit and eat popcorn thing while people are talking on Facebook comments. Our customer service team will jump in. I'm like, just wait. And then like 2 minutes later, there's like, they all like will jump in and say, nope, you're doing it wrong. You're not thinking about it right. And so we've actually kind of just sat back and let the customers kind of have that sort of as an open exchange. I'm reminded of a funny story. Somebody asked me once, a nice lady asked me once, she said, hey, like what's actually the difference between this razor and the razor I learned to shave on, 20 years ago? I was like, well, for one thing, you'd probably still have it. And it just like, she just stopped and she's like, wait a second, what? I'm like, no, you'd still have it. There's no reason to get rid of it. It would still work. That's when she got it. She didn't need any spreadsheets. She didn't need numbers. She's just like, oh, I don't throw it away. And I was like, yeah, you don't throw it away. It's aluminum. You'd have to really do something to it. I mean, don't drive over your car, but I mean like something you'd have to like really do something for it to go away. And if you do, we make it in 9 colors and sometimes people buy more than one, but there's really no need to. So no, our customers are actually turning into that advocate. I think we have one little spot on our website that talks about how much money you save. And even that, I think we might've even taken it off. I don't even know if it's still there.
But one thing you didn't ask, I don't think, when you started this company was the typical thing that everyone does nowadays. They say, well, the total addressable market, the TAM, is, the entire planet. So how do we scale up to sell to everyone on the planet? I don't think you can sell to everyone on the planet.
No, absolutely not. We are not planning on giving 3 billion people this shave. I mean, put it this way. I was talking to somebody the other day and, your company's amazing. Do you need money? Take money. And I'm like, bro, you write me a check for $20 million like tomorrow. What do I do? It took us 20 years to acquire the employees that we have. Like they're part of the family. Like you can't just go make more of them. Like, I obviously I'm biased, but like if you saw what went into making this, if you got your hands like Jesse, that razor, you're proud to own that. Like it is a very difficult, like if you look at what happened. So 20 years of meeting cash flow through 2008, 20 years of putting up, like everybody doesn't get along all the time. News alert, 20 years of putting up with conflict and building relationships with suppliers and not missing payments and acquiring new machines. And hey, we're profitable. Do we buy another machine or do we take a dividend? Let's buy a new machine because we've got our eyes on something bigger. We don't know what it is yet, but there's something bigger. And 20 years of a family working together to make something, then finally conceiving an idea, then executing it well, then trying to tell somebody, then delivering it to the consumer for about 6 hours of minimum wage. The idea is that we don't intend to make it for the world. We intend to make the select few who manage to get their hands on one just something that's legitimately good.
I mean,
that's disruptive. I mean, that is not how MBAs approach business. They approach business as how can we get the cost of it down and more people to buy it. Mm-hmm. And you're saying basically, if I had that problem tomorrow, it would be a problem. Yeah, I'm not going to sell 1 billion of them.
No, we don't want to.
And that's weird. I think I hear viewers out there going, wait, what? You're not a business person then. That's crazy.
I'm not. I dropped out of high school. Like, no way. We're looking at, and I'll tell you, having watched companies grow, and we've had a few companies in the past, people think that business just linearly scales. It doesn't. It increases in complexity. And I think, not to be a fanboy here for Elon, but if I can nerd out for 2 seconds, I don't think the population has wrapped their head around just how insane of a task it is to disrupt the internet, disrupt the ground and transportation system, and disrupt the transportation system on land. He's literally taken all 3 axioms. He's creating new real estate underground, he's affecting real estate above ground, and he's creating a new internet in space. The he was talking the other day about a battery system in the giant friggin' ship they're working on. He says that there's electric, the motors that move the fins on the ship are electric. And he was in a conversation with somebody in his team. And one person on his team said, hey, we're putting an insulator around that. And the reason we're putting an insulator is to cut down on vibration. Then he went over to the vibration department and they're like, why is that insulator in there? And he's like, oh, that insulator's in there to cut down on fire risk. Both of them thought the problem was with the other person. People don't understand the nuances and what's involved in manufacturing. It is very complex. For me to go from making how many of these we're making now, I don't just buy a new machine, plug it into the wall, and more of them start out the line. We've got quality control. The machine that measures this razor is $500,000. Just the machine that measures it. And it's in a temperature controlled room. So if we were to buy another one of those machines, in addition to the $500,000, we'd need a larger temperature controlled room, which means we need more people. We've got 40,000 square feet and it's still not enough. It is incredibly complex to scale manufacturing seamlessly. So albeit that we have aspirations for growth, we don't have aspirations for textbook, take over the world growth. I don't know how my intention to scale our company, but the reality of the weight of the complexity of manufacturing this come together. I don't know those yet. I don't know if I can handle enough variables to double our throughput. That's a complicated thing to do. So as we continue to scale up, it's really about having the humility to look at the problem, submit yourself to it, and continue every day to find a new solution for that growth. And it's difficult for me to just be like, we're going to do that. It's like, it's really hard, and we're going to take it day by day, step by step. And the idea is that if we keep doing that one day at a time, our trajectory right now is literally this. We are going like this, but it's controlled and it's slow and it's calculated and it's after much consideration. So our trajectory, albeit is great, the complexities required to manufacture this at scale are immense. And so for us to show credence to those variables, for us to show respect to them, it's difficult to just be like, we're going to shave the world. It's like, that's super complex. That's where Elon's specialness is there. He has the mind to understand those complexities and the vision to get there. I just don't know that I do.
Well, and it's funny, the whole story of how this razor came to be, I couldn't tomorrow, if Henson Razor didn't exist and I had your design and I even if I knew how to make it, the cost to start Henson Shaving would be immense. It would be well past, I would assume, feasibility for anyone else. This is an anomaly.
Right.
You don't get this. You don't get this from MBAs. You don't get this from typical investment. This comes out. This is a. I don't want to say a relic. It makes it sound old, but this is an impossibility almost. It's a satellite company, a company that can produce, amazing high tolerance items. Going, hey, let's make something for everyone. Right. that everyone can have. I'm a little. I'm amazed that this exists, that you didn't just go, oh, well, we'll make some part for some other space thing that you went, oh, let's make something that actual people can get their hands on. And I think that that's what people like about Tesla is that Tesla's kind of making this thing that like, there's no reason for you to have 0 to 60 in less than 2 seconds and all the way up to 200 miles an hour.
Or the Cybertruck.
Right. It's like, oh, what, you can do that?
Right.
Like, oh yeah, Elon is a visionary and stuff, but for something like this, I don't even think Elon would tackle it.
It's kind of the perfect part of being human. The MBAs for the longest time took out the human aspect of why we do. You did something because you wanted to achieve excellence in that thing. Just like Elon wants to have a cool Cybertruck that it's only for him. Like, yes, we all have grown to like it, but he didn't come out with like a focus group and like, what do you think would be the best color? He just said, hey, I would love this. And if you're on board with that, you'll love it too. And the same thing with this. You didn't say like, let's have a room full of people and see how we could save money. You said, this is the problem we want to solve. And that's what entrepreneurship is. That is why companies should be started instead of the Harvard MBA way of starting them, which is, hey, I thought of a way that we could screw everybody and save 5 cents on each item and we could become wealthy. That wasn't the point.
So what you're talking about is so close to my heart. So like, I'll give you a good example. Why does people watch your show? I'm sorry, Jesse, I'm going to throw you under the bus here. Nobody watches the show because of Jesse. And Zac, sorry, man, nobody watches the show because of you. They watch the show because of what you guys are together. Honestly, man, like I remember when I found you guys, it was during your, actually, Zac, it was during your Boring Tunnel series. That was how I discovered you guys. And then I went back, I couldn't get enough, so I watched all the old stuff. But the concept is that on your own, now don't get me wrong, Steven, by the way, Steven did a fantastic job. Let's just put that out there. He I just absolutely love that. I emailed him like, bro, way to go, man, it was great. But anyway, how you guys work together is what makes the show great. This product doesn't exist because my dad, my mom, my brother, nobody was the hero here. I'm not, you're at the beginning, Zac's like, what's your title? I'm like, what's my title? So no, I'm the CEO, but nobody cares because it's not about that. It's about, hey, wait a second. If this product wasn't as friggin' good as it was, because some machinists on our team had some great ideas, and if it wasn't as diligently created, because my brother Ryan is just so tactfully good at regimenting process and building relationship, his relationship with his employees that he's had for years is the only possible way that this happens. And then you look at everybody working together. My guy on my right over here, Matt, used to be the guy on the machine 10 years ago, making the parts that nobody else could make. Now he's our media buyer. My buddy over here, Ashley, is the guy who used my business partner. We've been through 4 businesses together. This exists because of prioritizing relationship over things. This company is only allowed to exist because we identify the strengths and weaknesses of other people around us, and we use those strengths and weaknesses to create a common goal that's literally bigger than what we could have done ourselves. That's the coolness of this razor. It doesn't exist because somebody had a friggin' good idea. This was like, somebody was saying it took years. The other, they're like, this must have taken years. My brother's like, actually, it didn't take much time at all, but it took 20 friggin' years to understand the principles and mechanics that went into making this so simple. So yes, it is exactly the same as what Elon's doing. He's going and saying, look, I've got a whole bunch of friggin' smart people that are around me. I've got a whole bunch of awesome people, and I'm going to use those things to do what ought to be done. The spreadsheet mattered because if we don't make money, we die. It isn't a charity. We're not here like for charity. But the idea here is that if you make the product good enough, the spreadsheet will work. And so the idea here is Brad, just my brother, he's friggin' good and his team's good and he made a good product. So it's very cool. And I don't know if it's on purpose or not, but it's very cool that we're working with you guys or that we're talking to you guys, because the idea of your show being the thing that helps our product be known by people is just so close to what my heart's goal was, where it's literally a bunch of people working together, which is the exact reason I watch your show. It's like, I'm going to cry here. Like I love what you guys do. And honestly, so much of what I know of Elon came from you guys. Like I'm not out following Twitter. I'm out, you guys telling me what's up and going, yes, that's how you do it. And you guys are the messengers of that. So you guys are like kind of partially responsible for a lot of what we produced because you guys gave me the inspiration. You're like the telephone lines that connected us to Elon. Like it's so great that we're here with you guys. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity to talk to you about it.
Oh, thank you. That's really awesome. And it really is cool. I mean, there's just something magical about Elon. He like the stars aligned, that he's got all the proper skills.
He's literally friggin' Iron Man. Like is he not like the actual manifestation of Iron Man? Like he's not, well, mind you, he's the boastful part. Just watching him in an interview and communicate, he tries to represent what is and what ought to be. He doesn't necessarily represent what he thinks he wants or his agenda or his ego or his motives. It's about what he thinks it should be. And that's the cool part about watching him is everyone can just sit there with a spoon and eat what he puts down because he doesn't bias it with what he thinks. He just represents what is to I think he does it very well. And so we all are fans here. And he's just my lifelong dream. And I don't know if anyone's going to watch this or if this is going to air or whatever else, but if my lifelong dream is for Elon to shave with this razor. And that is my intention. My intention is to get this razor on Elon's face and to get this razor in space with our other parts. And I'm telling you, I don't know how. I genuinely don't know how, but I'm going to find a way. This razor go into space. I want an astronaut to shave with this razor.
That's a great goal. I think that's I think that's totally doable. And it should be that way, because this razor was built on the same principles that Elon does all of his stuff with. So yeah, yes, he should.
That's exactly right.
Anyone watching today that has got Elon's toiletry kit in hand, maybe sneak one of these in there, and next time he's at Austin sleeping on the floor, next morning he'll get up and find it and he'll shave with it, and we'll have accomplished our goal. Thank you so much, Daniel, for being with us today.
Oh man, thank you guys.
Before we go, I just want to show people at home, because it is a hard topic. We're talking about shaving. You did a really good job of showing us, like, on your face, and Jesse, you just shaved with it. But you have a video that was really interesting of a playing card, I think. And I'm a woodworker, so I understand cutting wood and like the do's and don'ts and how to set a plane and so forth. Could you share that with us? Maybe we're showing it to you now, of this razor cutting a playing card versus a disposable razor doing it.
Yeah, I can actually talk you through probably what you're seeing. So the bottom part of the vise, we have the standard 5-blade cutting, and actually what you see is the blades have a tendency to go down because they're loose. We talked about how well the blades are supported. Because they're loose and they don't have control, the cutting action is going to go where the cutting action wants, and blades like to dig. That's what blades do. And so the top part says, hey, this is what happens when we cut along something where the blade doesn't get to decide what to do, but the support decides what to do. It's a visual representation of the microscopic, what happens to your face.
Yeah. And it's just so powerful, because that's going on at your face level. And I don't think anyone really thinks about it. It's just become such a rote thing to go just drag this thing over your face in the morning. But that's what's going on. And that's, again, why you didn't want to shave before a show. And that's just ridiculous. It's 2021. And we don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
We should have solved this problem, but we haven't yet.
Now we have.
Now we have.
And that's so cool. Again, so for those of you watching and you're like, well, why are you talking about shavers? Hey, Disruptive takes place anywhere. It doesn't have to be about electric cars or about space. It happens all over the place. And when it happens, it's for the betterment of all of us. And I think that's the thing we've all forgotten. We kind of think that companies are out there just to make money and they're all trying to screw us. If the company's doing something right, it's trying to bring about a better product or service for all of us. And
because otherwise we'd all still be living in caves, and the only business people would be selling rocks to people. that would be all that there is. There is a positive push that business can bring, doesn't always. Look at the oil industry. But even with that, for a time, it enabled certain things to actually happen. But with something like this, wow, we're lucky for me to be able to hold this. There's parts of this that are wire EDM'd. Usually you don't even bother wire EDMing something unless you're making something that's going to make something else.
Wait, so I'm sorry, for the non-manufacturer here, what's wire EDM?
So it is a very slow process where you are essentially zapping away material with usually, I believe it's a graphite electrode, and it's not cutting, you're like burning away, and it takes forever. It's very, very precise, and you've done it here to produce some of these, I think the flutes, right?
I don't know if we call it a flute or not, but those channels are done with an EDM wire. And the reason we did that is because if you look down that barrel there, if you look down that channel, you cannot get a tool in there. You cannot cut a tool on that path. So it's almost like if you ever go to the market and you ask for some cheese and they get one of those wires and they pull on it. But imagine that wire had so much electricity going through it that by the time it actually went near the cheese, it actually just melted the cheese away and disintegrated it. So it actually cuts without touching. And that's really neat, but it's really difficult to do. Again, really difficult to do that at scale. So there's a lot of things that we did here that it's difficult. I don't know how to put in a Facebook ad. Like, hey.
Well, and what I also like is you're setting a really good example for someone else out there who might have normally said like, oh, I came up with a better way to do it, but it's going to be really expensive and hard, guys. And so we won't even attempt it. You're setting the example of, yeah, that's okay. It's okay if it's hard. And
it doesn't have to be the cheapest thing in the world.
Right.
And most importantly is that if you make something that's good, I don't want to flaunt our success or anything here, but we're talking about principles. if you make something that's good, you don't have to be really good at marketing it. Like our marketing, sorry, Ashley, who's listening, isn't the best. Like we haven't visualized our product doing a good job yet. And every time we talk to someone in New York or some skinny jean, I've got a bunch of ideas on how to market it. This, number one, they want millions of dollars. And number two, they don't ever really do a good job. So the cool thing, the reason that entrepreneurs should be excited here is there's light at the end tunnel of make a friggin' good product and it might bloody sell itself. Like if you can make a good enough product, it will sell. That's the encouraging part here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I love my job. We
Yeah.
get to talk to people like you who are doing amazing things. Thank you to you and your team. This is really cool. I love just seeing that Jesse's happier. So, this is just like, and I want to tell more people about it. I want to say like, there's probably a lot of things that you've done in your life. Look at me. I have a face full of hair because I just got tired of shaving. And there's a lot of things in your life like that, which now you're solved one of them. So I think that's really, really cool. Thank you so much, Daniel, for being with us today. This was a lot of fun.
This was a blast.
If you're interested in what Daniel's doing, go check out hensonshaving.com, where you can see all of their different shavers. There's even a titanium one, like I said. Would probably make a great gift. And yeah, we're working with these guys. So I'm sure, fairly soon we're going to have some promo codes or something like that we'll be showing you guys.
No promo codes. No, actually. And hey, I'll tell you, we're not really looking to do the sale thing. We kind of said, what's a fair price? And we don't, nothing you hate more than buying something and then the week later it's on sale. It's cringy. So no, we've kind of just got this thing. We've got that built-in little piece that we keep and it ain't big, but it's there. And that there's no going to be any 5 or 10% off in the near future. But yeah, there is we hope that if we can keep everything consistent and everything flat, there'll be no good or bad time to buy our product. It's just whenever you are wanting to, and if you want to.
Well, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, Daniel.
Thanks so much, guys. Loved it.